Hey folks, happy Wednesday. It's the Cam Rogers Show. I'm Cam Rogers. It's April 11th, 2018. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. We thank you for coming along for the ride. I've got you covered for the next hour. Plenty of juicy content coming your way on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Here's the rundown for today's program, episode 89 of the show. Of course, starting things off with the latest NFL headlines, centered on Josh Rosen, his recent interview with ESPN, a little news nugget on Belichick and Gronk going at it, and so much more. Of course, the latest on Odell Beckham Jr. too. And then an NBA MVP debate, LeBron or Harden. It's up to you guys. Hit me up in the comment section at the bottom of the hour. That's when we'll talk about LeBron versus Harden. And then a look ahead to the NBA playoff picture. We enter the final night of games. The regular season is coming to a close in the association. I'll take a look at the standings where we're at right now, the playoff picture, and then perhaps I'll look ahead to some of the scenarios here that could go down tonight depending on the seedings and the results in tonight's action. And then finally, some possible teams out there if Dez Bryant is cut by the Dallas Cowboys. I've got my list of top 5, so stay tuned for that. So without any further ado, let's get into the NFL headlines this morning. Josh Rosen wants to win 7 Super Bowls. If Tom Brady gets another, Rosen wants to one-up Brady. So ESPN came out with an exclusive interview with Rosen, long-form kind of deal, where Rosen talks about many different topics. But one of the more notable nuggets coming out of that interview was really the lofty expectations that Rosen has as an NFL quarterback. And here's what he recently said in that interview. We have a quote here that I think is just so Josh Rosen, it hurts. Quote, "A lot of guys are flashier, but I think I'm the most efficient, monotonously consistent quarterback in this draft." So he went on to say he wants to be the winningest quarterback in NFL history. So he is already giving himself a whole lot of pressure here to be a successful quarterback in the pro league. And he's utilizing this kind of cocky sort of persona on purpose. He says that, you know, in order to be successful in a professional league, you need to be cocky. I'm not so sure that's exactly true. I'm not really too knowledgeable of Tom Brady making those kind of statements, saying that, you know, he expects to be, you know, the most winningest quarterback in the NFL, at least coming out of college saying that. Ryan Leaf coming out of college is pretty cocky, and, well, we all know how that went down. So kind of using that logic there, not so sure it's probably the best path to go. Now, if you're an NFL GM, of course, it depends on your personal mindset, but I'm wondering if NFL GMs kind of like that sort of stuff from a quarterback. And if I'm a GM, I'm saying no. I kind of like the more Sam Darnold type of route where you let the play on the field kind of speak for itself more so than what you're saying in an interview and what's being said in a column. So with that, we ask the folks watching right now, will Josh Rosen win 7 Super Bowls? Give me a heart for yes, a like for no in the reaction poll. This is literally a reaction poll because we are being reactionary to this interview here that went out yesterday. So, you know, saying that he wants to one-up Tom Brady. He's assuming Brady is going to win 1 more Super Bowl. So with that, Rosen expects to win 7. That's lofty expectations. We'll see if you guys feel the same way as Josh does. Hit me up with a heart for yes and a like for no. But some interesting quotes here from Rosen, to say the least here. Now, I don't think it's the best path to kind of carve out yourself in terms of your persona, but Rosen is Rosen, and, well, I'm here behind a desk talking about Rosen. So I guess we can kind of tell who's more successful right now. But anyway, Rosen is a guy that I think has really good footwork, really great arm talent, and, you know, will be successful in the NFL. But being the most winning quarterback in the NFL, you know, it's just, you're just setting yourself up for too high of expectations. Don't think it's the best plan in the world. I even like Baker Mayfield a little more in terms of his version of cockiness because it's more displayed on the football field, not in an interview setting. So with that, Josh Rosen recently coming out and talking about his expectations in the NFL. We'll see where he gets drafted, by the way. All right, so Richie Incognito, I talked about him recently. Now, he is expecting to retire, citing the stress involved with his job. Said his liver and kidneys are shutting down. Was originally reported that he could return at the right price. Now, it's been a whirlwind of headlines here for Richie Incognito. First, he fired his agency after reconstructing his contract and his base salary lowered. Then he says he may retire and could come back at the right price. Now he's saying he's just straight up done because essentially his organs are starting to shut down and he can't handle the stress of the NFL anymore. Now, he said the kidneys and liver are shutting down after, visiting with a doctor here. He continued on to say that, the stress is weighing on him, but he wants to be a Hall of Famer. So now the Bills have given him a deadline of Sunday to decide if he wants to return. And he's certainly a critical piece of that Buffalo Bills front five there. If the Bills lose Incognito, that's Richie gone along with Eric Wood, who retired. Those are two really solid players. Wood, a former center for the Buffalo Bills, shut it down due to a neck injury. And the Bills recently traded Cordy Glenn. So there's plenty of turnover there on that offensive line. If Richie goes, things get even worse for not just whoever's going to play quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, but LaShawn McCoy. And I think McCoy actually went out on Instagram or something and started calling out Richie to return, and he made a last-ditch effort to get him to come back to the Buffalo Bills. I know the Bills feel good about Deion Dawkins, though. He started in place of Glenn after Glenn got hurt last year. But aside from that, the holes may not be as wide for McCoy in 2018 as they were in 2017. Richie Incognito, we'll see if he officially retires, but it sounds like he is done. He has until Sunday to decide, so we'll see what happens there. All right, how about this? Colin Kaepernick, questioned yesterday in the collusion case against the National Football League. The NFL lawyers questioned him under oath and reportedly asked him about evidence he had for the collusion accusation, expectations in terms of salary and depth chart status with a new team, his health as we stand, a few different topics. Now, what the NFL owners are essentially doing is trying to gather all points that Kaepernick may use in his case and then hopefully call out his inconsistencies when all of this is brought before an arbitrator. Ultimately, it comes down to the following evidence: text messages, emails, testimony from owners, coaches, general managers, and league executives regarding whether and to what extent the coordination of any kind occurred. Now, just as a refresher, Colin Kaepernick is alleging that all 32 NFL owners colluded against him in disallowing him to be a member of the National Football League and to be a basically active quarterback on a roster. So far, Texans owner Bob McNair, Ravens GM Ozzie Newsome, and Ravens head coach John Harbaugh have been questioned in this case. Kaepernick will ultimately have to convince an arbitrator that this collusion went down, and I just think it's a very steep uphill climb here for Kaepernick to actually prove that. I'm not saying it happened or didn't. I'm saying it's going to be a really difficult task, and it looks like the NFL lawyers now are trying to do their best to really gather together what Kaepernick's argument is going to be. Now, I do want you guys weighing in on this. Do you think the NFL colluded against Colin Kaepernick in disallowing him to be a quarterback in the NFL? Hit me up in the comments section on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Just looking at some comments. I got the broadcast on my laptop right now. We got Mariano chiming in. He's good enough to be in the NFL. I think the distraction and lawsuit is what will keep him out of the NFL. It's a very good point. Now, you could make the argument that, of course, he is worthy of being a quarterback in the NFL from an ability standpoint. But now with this collusion case here, it's almost like it's bad PR on his own part because now NFL owners won't be as apt to sign him because they feel accused of something maybe they didn't do. So, we got Rolland and Adrian chiming in as well, both of them saying, yes, the NFL colluded against Colin Kaepernick. Keep hitting me up in the comments section. I'll be sure to chime in on what you guys say here throughout the broadcast. One more comment. John, he is finding out what happens when protests backfire. He dug his own grave but doesn't want to lie in it. All right. Well, the case goes on here for Colin Kaepernick, and we'll see what happens going forward. But I think eventually there's going to be some sort of market for this guy. What that market is, I don't know. Maybe an injury has to happen to a team during OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, you know, and the rest of the offseason workout. So maybe that's what it has to come down to. But again, so far, Texans owner Bob McNair, Ravens GM Ozzie Newsome, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh are the only three to be questioned at this juncture. And I will just say on a quick note for the Ravens questioning, that had to do with Robert Griffin III being signed. And essentially, the questioning kind of went in line with, well, why didn't you look into Kaepernick? You expressed interest in him before. Why didn't you sign him now? So that was kind of the reasoning behind that one. All right, so the debate goes on in terms of whether or not Colin Kaepernick will be back in the NFL, and this collusion case goes on. As somebody who would like to see him back in the National Football League, I am not a fan of what he is doing with this collusion case because, one, it's really hard to prove collusion, and two, I think it hurts his ultimate chances to get back into the National Football League. But hey, maybe he kind of pulls a rabbit out of the hat here, and he has the evidence, and he proves his case. We'll see what happens. All right, so from one former San Francisco quarterback to talking about a current one here, Jimmy Garoppolo is, of course, being anointed by many as the savior of the 49ers at the quarterback position. Joe Montana recently chimed in on the matter here. He isn't quite ready to buy into the Jimmy Garoppolo hype, if you will. He was recently on NFL Network on Good Morning Football talking about what he thinks about Jimmy Garoppolo. Here's what he recently said.
Back in the day, you were known as Joe Cool. And now if you look at San Francisco, they got a quarterback they're already calling Jimmy GQ. There's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement about Jimmy Garoppolo, both in San Francisco and all around the league. Tell me how you feel about the new era. Is this guy ready to take the torch?
You know, I think it's still a little early for it myself. I mean, he's obviously had a lot more success in the games he's played in so far than the other quarterbacks that have been there recently. So I think there's a lot of excitement in the Bay Area about it. I think this year will be a big tell on it. You know, they paid a lot of money for him. So, I think there's some belief there that he'll be there for a while.
All right, so there's what Joe Montana had to say about Jimmy G. And look, the guy has a point. Some of my first comments on Garoppolo was that the sample size is just too small in terms of games played with the 49ers to really anoint him as the answer, the one, the guy to take them back to the promised land. And who better to really talk about this than Joe Montana and the rings that he has? So is Garoppolo talented? Yes, of course. Is he a winner? Absolutely. Is he the guy that will take the 49ers to multiple Super Bowls? Let's just pump the brakes. It's one of those matters where, you know, I learned an AP stat back in the day that larger the sample size, the more reliable you can kind of base your hypothesis off of. And the sample size with Garoppolo in terms of games under his belt with the 49ers is small. So whatever we say about Garoppolo really can't be backed up with good, hard evidence because the data is just not there. So we need more reps. We need an entire regular season of Jimmy G under this big, fat contract that he has now. And then once 2018 starts to conclude here and we're looking ahead to the playoffs, if the 49ers are in the playoff hunt, that's when we can say whether or not maybe this guy is the franchise of San Francisco. At this juncture, I'm not so sure yet. It would just be a leap of faith to say otherwise. In fact, in the early goings of the contract discussion of Garoppolo, I got a lot of heat out there because I argued that San Francisco probably should have given him the franchise tag because he had 5 games under his belt with the 49ers. It's just not enough data. But I'm not a GM. John Lynch is. He decided to go a different route and pay Garoppolo big time. As you see there on your screen, $137.5 million contract back in February. All right, so that's the latest there with Garoppolo. Joe Montana chiming in on that. Ray Lewis, Hall of Fame linebacker, recently chimed in on the Odell Beckham Jr. situation. He was recently interviewed by Colin Cowherd on OBJ, and Ray mentions how Odell's foundation is, quote, disturbed, and that Odell no longer lets God into his life. Now let's see what Ray Lewis said to Colin Cowherd recently on Fox Sports 1.
Odell has removed God from his life. This is a kid that grew up under the covenant of who God really is. And everything that he's doing, he's crying out for help. We have a lot of people reporting about him, but it's always been the duty of elders to go back to help them. So that's why I raised my hand. And I told him, I'm here, whatever you need.
What do you say?
Well, it's not what he said. It was the commitment he started to make. So we started to make those phone calls. We started to have conversation. And then I started to see he started to distance himself a little more, and a little more. And the moment, just listen to me, Colin, I don't care about religion. I'm talking about a foundation.
Right.
When your foundation is disturbed,
yeah,
when everything you're doing is the opposite of what's got you to this place,
yes,
then you're making your own bed hard.
In Baton Rouge, it was football.
It's simple. It's simple.
His life is less football today.
It's less football. Guess why? I tell people this all the time. I just spoke at this church a couple days ago. You show me your crowd, I will show you your future.
Now, if you are a loyal watcher of the Cam Rogers Show, you know I am a Ravens fan. And I thank Ray Lewis every day for what he did to Baltimore and the city of Baltimore and for the Ravens. With that said, it sounds like Ray is very tight with Odell Beckham Jr. From what that soundbite tells me, and probably you guys have that same interpretation here, well, Odell recently took to Instagram and captioned a post with the following, quote, "The foundation was instilled at birth. We will survive and prevail always, God willing." So it's a not so subtle jab here at Ray Lewis, who said that God is not in Odell Beckham Jr.'s life, and then Odell recently posts on Instagram saying that God is in his life, essentially. So, yeah, there's some sort of disconnect here between Ray Lewis and what he thinks he knows about Odell Beckham Jr. and what really is the case with Odell and his situation. It's just another chapter in the saga that's going on with poor OBJ here. The guy wants to get paid, and now there are trade talks going on, and Dave Gettleman, you know, with these pre-written statements at the NFL owners meeting saying, I'm not talking about Odell, he's on our football team. Pat Shurmur said he's on our football team for now. Not the most ringing endorsement of your star wide receiver. So Odell is stuck in the middle of all this, a guy who essentially wants to feel secure with his money, and the Giants are starting to botch this whole situation. So, hit me up in the comments section. Will Odell Beckham Jr. remain with the Giants for the 2018 season? Let me know. Tyler Davis in the comments section saying OBJ news is everywhere. Yes, Tyler, it is. It seems like every time you tune in, I have something about Odell Beckham Jr. Today is no different, and Ray Lewis chiming in about it, and it sounds like he was a little off the mark on this one, so may have to go back to the drawing board on what he thinks about Odell Beckham Jr. But, you know, in other times, Ray Lewis sometimes is, you know, on the mark, and just hearing him speak sometimes makes me want to, like, run sprints because he has that motivational voice, but I could go on about Ray Lewis and what he's done for the Ravens and all that. Ravens bias shining out right now. All right, so Odell continues to go on with this process here in terms of maybe sitting out the 2018 offseason workouts. He did report for the Giants on Monday. We'll see what the Giants do here in terms of exploring a trade, but I think eventually Gettleman's going to cave here and pay Odell, and everything will be all dandy and happy here because $18 million a year is a lot of money, but it's also for a wide receiver who drastically changes the dynamic of that offense. So very important there. Hit me up in the comments section and let me know. Got some news on Eli Manning coming up in a little bit there, Tyler, so stick around on that one. All right, Cardinals. Sam Bradford, of course, is the quarterback there along with Mike Glennon. Now the Cardinals could go to the draft as well. So head coach Steve Wilks recently said that the Cardinals will ease Bradford into workouts. How about that second bullet on your screen? Wilks wants him to be ready to play, ready for this, 16-plus games. All right, so he is expecting Bradford, it seems, to be the starter, number 1, to play a full season, number 2, and to get to the playoffs, number 3. So here's some Cam Rogers trivia for you guys. When was the last time, if at all, Sam Bradford played 16 games in a regular season? Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know. That's your homework for the program as we are live here on Facebook. So, yeah, they're going to ease Bradford into it. Makes sense. I mean, right now, workouts are voluntary. There's no reason really to rush Sam Bradford into the fray. And Steve Wilkes kind of talked about how he knows what Bradford can do. There's enough tape on him to know what he can do as a quarterback, so no need to really rush him into any reps or anything like that. All right, so that's the deal with Sam Bradford. From one quarterback to another here, we're going to talk about the situation with Eli Manning. And he said he has not discussed the future with the Giants here. Now, Eli Manning took the most cookie-cutter approach to responding to a question about this, and here's what he said. This league, it's 1 year at a time. That's kind of how it goes. I need to go out there and play well this year, and that's all I'm looking forward to. Now, Manning carries a cap hit in the $20 million range for 2018 and 2019. The Giants would save a good chunk of change if they did cut Manning. After the 2018 season, next spring, he'd bring $17 million in cap savings. So you could look at that. Now, if the Giants, draft a quarterback at number 2 overall, that tells me New York is looking for the post-Eli Manning era, and there's a possibility they cut him in 2019. If the Giants trade back from number 2 or draft Saquon at number 2, that tells me they're not quite ready to look at the post-Eli Manning era, or Davis Webb apparently is the chosen one to be the successor to Eli, and I'm not so sure that really is a safe bet there. So I think there's going to be a lot of subtle hints here in terms of what the Giants are looking at with Eli Manning, and it's going to come down at that number 2 overall pick. It'll tell us what they're thinking, and there are a couple of avenues that they could go. And I'm wondering here if the Giants are in love with Josh Rosen, too. And if they are, they have an opportunity to kind of X out the opportunity for the Jets to get Josh Rosen. Apparently, they're in love with Rosen at number 3 overall. But Eli Manning here, quiet on the future with New York, and I wouldn't expect anything less. He usually is pretty, calm and not too insane about, comments to the public or anything like that. So Eli Manning keeping it cool there in terms of his future with the Giants. He's going to be the starter in 2018. 2019 is when it gets pretty rickety, so we'll see what happens. Speaking of the Jets, finally they are hosting Sam Darnold. It took them this long. The last big-time quarterback to be hosted by the Jets. It was a really odd situation. I talked about it on my show, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that the Jets have yet to even contact Sam Darnold about a workout. Finally, it's going to happen. The Jets, of course, selecting number 3 overall. And I think it's one of the more difficult predictions for me because it all depends on what happens at number 2. And let's say Darnold goes at number 1. Then you go to number 2. Will the Giants trade back with a desperate Bills team? And will that Bills team select Rosen? Will they select Allen or Mayfield? And I talked about how the Giants, could they be in love with Josh Rosen? So a few interesting avenues here. For the Jets, I think the most likely scenario is they have Mayfield and Allen on the board when they select at number 3 overall. From what I can gather, I know they like Mayfield a lot, but have questions about his footwork. So I think that's the most likely scenario. But I think the dream scenario is something like the Browns grab Darnold, Bills trade up, snag Mayfield or Allen, and then the Jets can draft Josh Rosen at number 3. I think the Jets do really covet Rosen a lot. I know they like Mayfield. I just said that. Do have questions about his size and footwork. If they can get Rosen over Baker Mayfield, they're going to do it. So I think that's kind of where we're headed here. So the Jets kind of doing their due diligence with Darnold in the rare case that Darnold, just falls to number 3. I think he goes at number 1. I've been saying it all offseason long. I'm not going to change my opinions on that one. So let me know what you think the Jets should do at number 3. We've got Rosen, Darnold, Mayfield, Allen. Who will the Jets draft? Now, it's going to be a quarterback, so there's a reason why I have all quarterbacks as your options. Give me a like for Rosen, laughing face for Sam Darnold, a heart for Baker Mayfield, a wow face for Josh Allen, and I think Mel Kiper came out with a 4.0 mock draft recently. He's still sticking with Josh Allen to go number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns, which would be absolutely amazing. And if you want to follow that kind of scenario, so it's Allen off the board at 1, then maybe Rosen off the board at 2, and the Jets kind of enter this scenario where they didn't really expect, with Sam Darnold falling to them at number 3, and maybe they'll be happy about doing that private workout. By the way, Darnold is working out with the Giants this week as well, so he's in the neighborhood. It's convenient, if you will. So there you go. We'll see what happens as we get closer to the draft. All right, so some Aaron Donald news here. So he's about to get paid, okay? The best, perhaps, non-quarterback player in the NFL. Les Snead said that Donald is on the verge of becoming the richest defender in the NFL. This is no surprise at all. Les Snead telling Peter King this. Considering Ndamukong Suh is in town, I think there's kind of a bit of irony, too, by the way. It's kind of interesting there. Donald is, of course, a force. The guy gets it done in so many phases of the game. Ranked first among defensive linemen according to Pro Football Focus a year ago, a 99.7 grade to his credit. Perhaps J.J. Watt's recent injuries have paved the way for Donald to get paid big time too, right? He's stealing more headlines as the best defender in the NFL, perhaps in part thanks to, for lack of a better phrase, J.J. Watt's injuries. I mean, it's just a fact that J.J. Watt hasn't been able to perform at a high level because of his health problems. Now, the Rams leadership informed NFL Network that the recent acquisitions won't disrupt the financial plannings for Aaron Donald. In fact, I was told that these financial plans were put in place well ahead of time. So there you go. Aaron Donald about to get paid big time, ladies and gentlemen. All right, next bit of news here, talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Well, we know one thing for sure. They were certainly in the market for wide receivers. They reportedly looked into Jeremy Maclin. So this coming from a report from ESPN, and it was also reported recently, as you may recall, that the Cowboys were looking into Sammy Watkins as well. Brought in Alan Hearns, Deontay Thompson officially to sign. Eagles also reportedly made some preliminary inquiries into Jeremy Maclin. Maclin, a Pro Bowler back in 2014. He's been a shell of himself really since 2015. Maclin set career lows with 40 catches, 440 yards, playing for my Baltimore Ravens a year ago. Never got on the same page with Joe Flacco. Also dealt with his fair share of injuries. And, you know, it's not a surprise the Cowboys are looking at wide receivers or were looking at wideouts because they ranked 26th in the NFL in total passing yards with not a single receiver reaching 900 yards. Yes, that includes you, Dez Bryant, who I'll talk about at the end of the program because I got my top 5 teams for Dez Bryant if he is indeed cut. So stay tuned for that. Jeremy Maclin, though, very much still in the market for a new team. We'll see where he goes. All right, let's talk a little Khalil Mack. He was recently a no-show for the Oakland Raiders. And why is that? Well, he's currently in contract negotiations with Raiders leadership here. He expected an extension that was supposed to happen, quote, very quickly. Obviously, that is not the case. The Las Vegas Journal-Review said on Monday that initial talks were, quote, not even close. So not really good news there if you're a Raiders fan. Now, I think this is going to drag on a bit, but I think eventually there will be some sort of solution to all of this. Reportedly, Khalil Mack is looking at $65 million in guarantees. We'll see if that goes down. Mack, of course, entering the final year of his rookie contract, is due to make $13.8 million in 2018. My assumption is he will eventually get the money he's looking for, considering he's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro selection, and the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year. All of that kind of adds up to a pretty good payday. I think he just needs to be a little patient. All right, so we'll see what happens there with Khalil Mack. All right, so what is the latest with Bill Belichick and Rob Gronkowski? It's at the top of my broadcast description. So you guys probably know what the deal is on the surface here, right? That Bill Belichick and Rob Gronkowski reportedly got into it with each other because Bill Belichick does not want Rob Gronkowski to be a client of the TB12, Center of Therapy or whatever it's called, and being a client of Alex Guerrero. Now, we know Belichick hates Guerrero, and we know Belichick is the ultimate micromanager. Bill Belichick wants to be in control. I am on Team Gronk 100%. Boston Herald reported that Belichick ripped Gronk apart for being involved with this TB12, and look, that was just a matter of time for that report to come out. It's like, are any of us actually surprised about this? Rob Gronkowski, one of the more, shall we say, fun characters in the NFL, going out and trying out the TB12 and being a client of Alex Guerrero, and Bill Belichick, who wants everything in his sphere to be controlled, doesn't like that. Interesting, and I think it supports that Seth Wickersham ESPN report that came out not too long ago. Maybe it's not so fake news anymore, Patriots fans. So when three egos clash for so long, talking about Kraft, Brady, and Belichick, something will go awry. And I think Bill Belichick is at the center of the problem. Tom Brady is in this awkward position here where he wants to push forward his company and, his vision off the field. He also wants to be loyal to Bill Belichick as the head coach. So he's stuck in the middle here because, he wants to encourage his players to use TB12, but at the same time, he doesn't want the players to go against Bill Belichick per se. So it's a rough situation here for Tom. So all in all, I think this is a Bill Belichick problem. He whined about having to trade Jimmy G. He whined and yelled at Gronk for being a client of TB12. The New York Daily News, not too long ago, reported Bill was ready to seize the vacant head coaching position for the New York Giants. Not my words, the New York Daily News' words. Oh, and remember when Gronk was wishing Danny Amendola the best when he moved on to the Miami Dolphins? That was on an Instagram post. Remember that caption where he capitalized the words free and happy? What does that tell you guys? Is Rob Gronkowski feeling like he's chained to the Patriot way, if you will? Chained to what Bill Belichick wants? That is the problem. And that's why the Patriots are in trouble next season in hopes of making a Super Bowl run because Bill Belichick is getting to the point where he's starting to rub players the wrong way. And if Tom Brady is part of that group, the Patriots are not making any noise next year. Talking about in the playoffs. They'll get to the playoffs, sure. But will they make noise there? I'm not so sure about it because this stuff is real. We're not just talking about hearsay, anonymous reporting anymore. We have all of the data here from the Wickersham to this Boston Herald report. The list goes on. Alex Guerrero sure has been a part of this as well. But Bill Belichick just can't let it go. Can't let it go. Because Tom Brady is kind of immersing himself into this quasi-GM role now because he is the face of the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick is not. Bill doesn't like that. He doesn't want his players going on over to an outside source for health reasons. And I do think the Patriots are in trouble from a mental standpoint unless the players can find a way to coexist with being Brady and Belichick loyalists at the same time. And that is a big if. Now, the only way that that can happen is if they all come together as one with one ultimate goal, which is to win. And that's what has kind of helped this Kraft, this Belichick, this Brady trifecta fiasco here, because all of them want to win, and that's why they haven't essentially gone at each other's throats yet. But there's going to be a time where perhaps Tom Brady, Bill Belichick cracks, and it's going to be all over the news. Patriots are in trouble, guys. And I'm on Team Gronk on this one. Bill Belichick has to dial it back, or else he's going to start losing the locker room. All right, so that's the latest there with the New England Patriots. Finally, here in the NFL headlines, C.J. Anderson was almost traded to the Miami Dolphins. How about this little piece of news here? So the Dolphins and the Broncos reportedly verbally agreed to a trade, and Miami backed out last minute. Now, the deal was Jawan James, the tackle there for the Dolphins, over to the Denver Broncos, and the Dolphins would get C.J. Anderson. Adam Gase coached CJ in Denver, so some familiarity there. And obviously, Juwan James would fill a big-time need for the Denver Broncos. Good young tackle, great pass protector when healthy, and Denver needs help on that offensive line. Instead, the Miami Dolphins went with Frank Gore. So I think they're all set there at running back. For now, I could see them going into the running back market there as we approach the draft. And maybe in the later rounds of the draft, they could look at some running backs there. But C.J. Anderson, how about that? Almost traded to the Miami Dolphins. So those are your latest NFL headlines here on the Cam Rogers Show, presented by Mizzen and Main. These are advanced performance fabric shirts that you will love. Sweat wicking technology. Check them out. Comfortable.af is the website. Save yourself so much time, too. No ironing needed. You don't have to make those trips to the dry cleaner. None of that. You can wear them wherever you want, too. Very versatile products. Work, happy hours, parties, etc. And not just shirts either, sweatshirts, hats, and so much more made right here in America. Visit Maine sponsoring the Cam Rogers Show here today. Wrapped up a little NFL talk. Are you here for some NBA talk? I am here to satisfy you. Talking about the NBA MVP race. Harden or LeBron, what is your prediction? Who do you think will win the NBA MVP? So I am going to present the case for James Harden and the case for LeBron James. I will start things off with the case for James Harden. All right, so let's start with opening night. October 17th, Oracle Arena. Harden's Houston Rockets downed the defending champion Golden State Warriors 122-121 in a game that featured Chris Paul, by the way, at his worst. CP3 had just 4 points in 33 minutes to go with 10 assists and eventually got hurt in that game. Harden had 27 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds en route to that tone-setting win for the Rockets. And it sure was a tone-setting win because they're going to be the #1 seed in the Western Conference. By the time Paul returned from his injury, the Rockets had won 10 of 14 games. Now, Harden, I think, in terms of the case for him, from a longevity standpoint, is about his consistency coupled with the expectations, right? LeBron will have expectations year in and year out. But obviously the expectations for Harden weren't at LeBron level going into this year. He improved on his defense, which is something of note. He took his Rockets atop a Western Conference that the Warriors were supposed to dominate. Now, the Warriors dealt with their fair share of injuries. I understand that. But here is James Harden, right, leading a charge of a Houston Rockets team that could perhaps capture the NBA Finals, especially when you look at the situation in the East. You got an injury-riddled Celtics team. You got a Cavs team that is being dragged along by LeBron James. And again, I'll talk about the case for LeBron in a matter of moments here. And by the way, hit me up in the comments section. What do you guys think? Brandon's saying no debate here. So you're talking about a team that could perhaps capture the NBA Finals in the Houston Rockets. Now, according to basketballreference.com, how about this? Harden is about to become just the 4th player in league history to average 30 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds for an entire season. The other 3, Jordan, Oscar Robertson, and Westbrook. All right, so pretty good company there for Harden. He has a league-leading 262 made threes. An ability to get to the line, too. League-leading 721 attempts from the charity stripe. Dominates in isolation. 1.22 points per possession compared to LeBron's 0.96. Hey, and he's 3rd on the team in assists to boot. And that's pretty impressive considering Chris Paul is on that squad. All right? Harden's defense, of course, won't steal any headlines or anything like that, and I understand that. But he's been an important cog in the machine of that defense that ranks 7th in efficiency. LeBron's Cavs ranked 29th in efficiency. So you look at the numbers here for Harden. They are so compelling to me. Now, that is the case for James. Brandon in the comments section saying LeBron hands down. Jeremy saying Harden. Keep hitting me up in the comments section. I'll keep calling you guys out, give you guys some shout-outs on the show as we continue along with this MVP debate. So let me know who you think wins. So that's the case for Harden. Case for LeBron James. 3rd in points per game, 2nd in assists, 15th in rebounds, shooting 54.4% from the field, 36.7% from beyond the arc. Only player in the league this season to average 25 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and shoot 54% or better from the field. And a career high in double-doubles, 51, career high in triple-doubles with 18. LeBron and records go hand in hand. And I think that's sometimes the problem here when we're evaluating LeBron versus somebody else. Because I feel like the problem is sometimes we get desensitized to his greatness, desensitized to the records. We get an alert on our phone. Oh, LeBron James. He broke another record. Oh, okay. James Harden breaks the internet, with breaking ankles. We pay attention to that more than LeBron James. Look at that resume. Look at that resume, and you tell me how hard it is to be desensitized to him. It's not. 4 MVPs, 3 NBA Finals MVPs, a perennial champion, always in the All-Star game. So it's just like it's building block after building block after building block that just gives him that reputation that is beyond, I think, Harden's reach right now. But in terms of the stats, like I said, very compelling for Harden. James has 4 MVPs to his credit. He knows what it takes, so kind of has that in the back pocket. Now, I want to look at the team here for the case of LeBron. Because you look at the Cavs in general, and it's a team that probably is a lottery squad without LeBron. I don't think that's too much of a hot take to say. James and his roster here, it's fair to say there's been a fair share of turnover. And yet there's going to be at least 50 wins for this Cavaliers squad. After trading Kyrie, Isaiah Thomas comes to town, and that was a mitigated disaster. Even after that massive trade overhaul, players faced their fair share of injuries. Kevin Love, Rodney Hood, Larry Nance, George Hill, they all missed games. Okay? Since February 1st, amidst all of that adversity, James is averaging 29.5 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and shooting 54.3% from the field, along with a 39.4% clip from beyond the arc. You want to talk about one of the more clutch performers in the association? LeBron is one of them. In the fourth quarter, James has averaged 7.5 points, a shade over 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and shot 51.5% from the field while registering a plus 6.4 net rating. It's clutch numbers. And so it's a debate that's going to continue on. And I think Harden you can think of more from a dominating statistical perspective. James in terms of the pure value that he brings to the Cavaliers. And you got to weigh one and the other. Now, I think we will have a better idea of our argument as we continue to watch these playoffs. How will LeBron play with the Cavs in the postseason, right? Because if LeBron is clearly carrying the team on his back to wins in the playoffs, that supports his MVP argument. Harden is going to have to continue to light it up throughout the NBA playoffs to continue to build upon his argument. For LeBron, it's more about wins in my eyes. Now, just looking at some comments here, we got Mitchell Wren saying Harden, Parker saying Harden was unreal this year. He'll be the actual MVP. Let's see, who else we got? Arenthus, truthfully, neither of them do. I'd give it to Lillard. Wow, Damian Lillard getting the MVP. Portland has balled out this year. He put the team on his back. Producer Harris Rubenstein likes that one. Keep hitting me up in the comments section. Jeremy is saying Harden. Brandon, he's so inconsistent, no one pays attention. Keep hitting me up, guys, with your thoughts here. Mariano is saying LeBron is made for the playoffs. Harden is a choke artist. Ooh, some big-time stuff there. Zachary with LBJ. So I think we're like 50-50 right now. I'm tracking the comments, and it looks like we have yet to really reach a consensus. So let me know what you think about the current MVP race between James and Harden. We'll continue to follow it here on the Cam Rogers Show. Presented by Mizzen and Main. Head on to comfortable.af for these fantastic advanced performance fabric shirts that you will love. It's a really cool website, too, because they are comfortable as F. Mizzen and Main sponsoring the Cam Rogers Show here today. More NBA content for you. Let's look at the playoff picture now as we head into the final evening of games. So we'll start things off in the Eastern Conference. What I'm going to do is kind of zone in on some of these teams here. So you got the Raptors as the 1 seed. You got the Celtics at 2, 76ers at 3. There are the Cavs at 4. So let me just say this off the bat. All but one of these 16 playoff spots have been clinched. We got Minnesota and Denver deciding that final berth for the postseason. So for the Raptors, they're locked in as the top seed. The Celtics are locked in as the second seed, so not too much turnover there. You got to look at the Pacers there as the number 5 seed in terms of the Eastern Conference. And they are locked in at that slot as well. Now, a lot of potential turnover there at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. I'll get to the Western Conference later. So in terms of Toronto, they got DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, they're healthy. There'll be key pieces to that run to the finals, which, it's finals or bust for the Toronto Raptors. It's funny, we draw the comparison sometimes. The Raptors are the Washington Nationals of the NBA. Now is the time for Toronto to prove everybody wrong and to no longer be, shall we say, a punchline anymore when talking about them in the postseason. All right, so that's the deal with the Raptors. I think they have a versatile offense. They've improved their three-point shooting. They can guard with the best of them in the NBA. So I like where they're at there as that top seed. It all comes down to crunch time, pressure, the playoff atmosphere. Can they get it done? That's the look at the Raptors. Celtics at 2, locked in as that 2 seed. Now, the Celtics starters, as imagined, going into the season, they played exactly 5 minutes together. 5. Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they got Terry Rozier, they're all there, but losing Kyrie hurts a lot, right? And I think the Celtics are going to be a possible early playoff exit pick by many experts out there. Now, the current belief in Boston is that Irving's knee, the cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and bones, is sound in that he'll have no long-term issues with it. Perhaps this playoffs for Boston will be more about fans holding their breath about Kyrie rather than hoping for a deep playoff run. Because I think, in terms of longevity, I would assume a lot of Celtics fans are more worried about Kyrie than whatever the heck happens in the playoffs because they probably don't think the Celtics are going to the finals and winning the finals. So, Celtics there at 2. Fun team at 3 in the East, the 76ers. Ooh, you talk about this team. So Philadelphia and Cleveland will be the 3 and 4 seeds, respectively, in the East. In some order. We don't know the order yet. We need the conclusion of tonight's game. Slate of games, I should say. So Sixers and Hawks battled it out. Sixers crushed the Hawks. And J.J. Redick scored 28 points, and the surging Sixers set a franchise record with their 15th consecutive victory. The Sixers can secure that 3 seed with a win over Milwaukee in the regular season finale. If the 76ers prevail, it'll be their 16th consecutive victory, of course, and that would be top the record for the longest winning streak to end any NBA season. Not too bad after years of process losing, shall we say. I like this team. They got momentum. When I am looking at any playoff, NFL, NBA, MLB, whatever, I'm looking at how a team is finishing entering that postseason. The Sixers are finishing in fine fashion, and their competition is a Kyrie-less Celtics team, unproven Raptors squad, and a Cavs squad that is being dragged along by LeBron James, and let's say LeBron has 2 off nights, it's easy. So since New Year's Day, only Curry, Paul, and Jamal Murray have better offensive ratings among point guards than Ben Simmons. Time to get on the Ben Simmons train, ladies and gentlemen. This kid's legit. Hit me up in the comments section, by the way, in terms of who you think will be making the NBA Finals. I want to hear from you guys. All right, let's get to that 4 seed talking about the Cavs real quick. So like I said, Philadelphia or Cleveland will be 3 or 4 in some order. Cavs take on the Knicks tonight. If LeBron appears for Cleveland against New York, it will mark the first time in James's 15 seasons that he plays in all 82 regular season games. He will lead the NBA in minutes played, field goals made, and total points this season at 33 years old, guys. 33. Only bolstering his MVP argument there. Now, LeBron, by the way, a little nugget of information, will ditch social media during the NBA playoffs like he did last season. So perhaps the Cavs see an opportunity here for another trip to the finals. I talked about how maybe the Sixers see an opportunity. If the Cavs pick it up, and I'm not just talking about LeBron, I'm talking about coexisting with LeBron here. I mean, they're going to need Larry Nance, Hood, Clarkson to do their jobs. I mean, it's Kyrie-less Celtics. It's a 76ers team that is promising, but we'll see what they can do in the postseason, and the Raptors that are unproven. So we got the Cavs there. as the 4 seed. The Pacers are locked in as that 5 seed. So you see them there. Not too much turnover possibility here in terms of seeding scenarios. So they're going to stay put where they are. I do want to skip on over to the final 3 here because I think these are the important ones. Milwaukee Bucks, Miami Heat, and Washington Wizards. We'll start with the Bucks. So Milwaukee, Miami, and Washington all could finish either 6th, 7th, or 8th in the East collectively. So there could be many different orders here. Now, the Bucks will have a little fun pre-playoff game, if you will, in a sense, against the 76ers. So they're going to have to win that game to kind of help themselves in the standings here. The Miami Heat will host a Raptors team with really nothing to play for tonight. And then you got the Wizards. They just beat the Celtics 113-101. John Wall looked pretty ready for the postseason. Posted 29 points, 12 assists, and a win over those Celtics. For now, the Wizards are 8th in the East. All right, we'll see if that changes here. Their result against Orlando, along with how Miami fares against Toronto and what Milwaukee does at Philadelphia, will really determine where these Wizards, Heat, and Bucks all lay out. So some fun stuff here because we're not sure in terms of seeding in the East. But in the West, we're not even sure about the 8th seed here because we have Minnesota and Denver to deal with tonight. Let's take a look at the Western Conference playoff picture there. Got the Rockets, Warriors, Jazz, and Trailblazers, 1 through 4 there. Rockets are locked in as 1. Warriors are locked in as 2. All right, let's go to the next slide here because I do want to zone in on the bottom of your screen on this one. So you got the Pelicans at 5. You got the Spurs at 6, Thunder at 7. There are the Timberwolves at 8. On the outside looking in, the Denver Nuggets. So here is the situation. If the Denver Nuggets win their game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, they will be 5th, 6th, or 7th. Minnesota, if they win, would finish anywhere from 5th through 8th. All right, so those are kind of the scenarios there with the Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, just kind of going down the line here, Houston Rockets. We'll start there. James Harden has the scoring crown wrapped up. He'll be the first player to win back-to-back scoring titles since his former OKC teammate Kevin Durant won 3 straight from 2009 to 2012. Now, it looks like Clint Capella there is set to win the field goal percentage race this year as well. So I guess Houston can score. You know, cold take there. Speaking of points, by the way, just kind of a fun little nugget about the NBA in general. The NBA will see more points than ever in terms of total, not average per game. There were 259,753 points in the regular season a year ago. That number will be eclipsed this year, so kind of fun information there. So the Rockets are locked in as 1. Warriors are locked in as 2. Golden State has lost 10 of its final 17 games this season. They got blown out by Utah last night. Believe it or not, perhaps the Warriors are in kind of a mild underdog role here. Everybody's talking about the Houston Rockets as that top seed there in the West. Klay Thompson alluded to it too, saying, quote, "We're ready to prove the doubters wrong." Now, you better believe the Warriors hope to not face the Thunder or Jazz in the postseason. Golden State has combined 3-5 against Utah and OKC. In contrast, the Warriors are 10-5 against all other possible playoff opponents, including the Nuggets, Spurs, Pelicans, and Timberwolves. Speaking of those Jazz, there they are as the 3 seed as we stand. As I said, crushed the Warriors, 119-79. Donovan Mitchell scored 22, set the NBA rookie record for 3-pointers as Utah rolled in that game. Now, here's the situation with the Jazz. They can claim the 3 seed in the Western Conference with a win over Portland, easier said than done, which is tonight. Even with a loss to the Blazers, they are assured of falling no lower than a 5 seed. Let's take a look at the Trailblazers here. They will be the 3 seed if they beat the Jazz. Otherwise, they will just stay there as the 4 seed. So even if they lose, they will remain. They won't be falling any further. We got the Pelicans as the 5 seed. So how about this? San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and New Orleans could all be anywhere from 4th through 8th in the West. The Pelicans will take on the Spurs tonight, so an important game in terms of playoff implications. And, you know, it's an interesting storyline after the recent death of former owner Tom Benson. Kind of a fun, motivating factor, not fun, I guess, but maybe important motivating factor for the Pelicans as they go throughout the playoff series, kind of winning for Benson, right? I think that's something to kind of keep in mind there, and of course, could be a feel-good story too for the Pelicans. Spurs at 6. We'll take on those New Orleans Pelicans tonight. Kawhi Leonard continues to recover from a quad. It's not looking like we're going to see him in the playoffs either. I'm looking at some of these recent statements by Kawhi's teammates. Just does not sound very positive at all. Now, I will say this. I think Spurs fans are hoping for Kawhi to pull a Michael Jordan. So we're going back to 1986. Jordan played just 18 regular season games and returned to the lineup in mid-March. And he went into a series with Boston. In Game 2 of that first round against the Celtics, dropped 63 points. So maybe Kawhi could channel a little MJ and make that happen. So we got the Spurs there as that 6th seed. And as you see, they could finish anywhere from 4 to 8. So there you go with the Spurs. Let's go with number 7 here. We got the Oklahoma City Thunder. Russell Westbrook needs 16 rebounds against Memphis to average exactly 10 per game this season. If he gets there, he'll average a triple-double for the 2nd consecutive year. So some good stuff there from Westbrook. Also on pace to lead the NBA in assists per game. In terms of playoff prospects, the Thunder can run up and down the court. I think they're a very good, fast team. If they force a team to play to their style, they can make some noise. But there they are at 7th in the West. And then I mentioned the Timberwolves at 8 and the Denver Nuggets on the outside looking in at number 9. Just real quick here, the winner is in. Minnesota pulls off the victory. They can finish anywhere from 5th through 8th. The Nuggets will be 5th, 6th, or 7th with a victory over those Timberwolves. All right, so that's a look at the NBA playoff picture. The regular season ends tonight, and I'll have more about the playoffs on Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time on the Cam Rogers Show, sponsored by Mizzen and Main. These are advanced performance fabric shirts that you will love. Comfortable.af is the way to go. That's how you can learn more about these products. It's getting hotter out there as we go throughout April, so you're going to start to sweat a little more. These shirts really help you in that process. All right, let's wrap up the program here with a little Dez Bryant talk. Now, there is the possibility that the Cowboys cut Dez Bryant, and perhaps a decision on Dez could come by April 16th when the Cowboys begin off-season workouts. Now, I have put together a list of top 5 destinations if Dez Bryant is cut. Let's flash that right here, right now. I've got the Ravens at 1, Patriots at 2, Seahawks at 3, 49ers check in at number 4, and we got the Indianapolis Colts at number 5, all for varying reasons here. And my segment here is really stemming from Josiana Anderson's recent tweet. She said, quote, asked if the Cowboys have made a decision on Dez Bryant and if any change is expected before April 16th. And she was told, no news, up to Jerry. So you never know what Jerry's going to do, by the way. He can come out of nowhere and cut Dez Bryant tomorrow or say that he's our franchise wide receiver. Now, reasoning, Ravens. Flacco needs a lot of help in his aerial attack. I know they brought in Michael Crabtree, John Brown. Dez Bryant is the prototypical receiver that Joe Flacco likes. Bryant can be the new Anquan Boldin for the Ravens and take the Ravens to the Super Bowl. Okay, maybe not that much, but maybe, who knows? So I got the Ravens there at 1, Patriots at 2. That would be very intriguing to me. The Patriots recently traded away Brandon Cooks. Who's going to fill that void? Philip Dorsett? I mean, come on. Now, I'm not saying Dez is going to be Brandon Cooks, nor will he be that vertical threat, but I think Tom Brady would find a use for Dez, and maybe a change of scenery is what Dez really needs. Got Seattle there at 3. Wide receiver, definitely a need there. You got the 49ers and Colts, 2 teams with a good amount of salary cap space, and they can handle Dez's contract if Dez doesn't want to take a pay cut. The Niners will say, come on over. Colts will say, come on over, because after T.Y. Hilton, we have Ryan Grant and Chester Rogers. So there you go, my top 5 teams for Dez Bryant. I'll continue to monitor that situation for you Cowboys fans out there as well. All right, folks, I'm wrapping up the program. You have watched the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. If you missed any of the show, keep it right here on this video. I'll see you Friday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Take care.